Hey, welcome to another Babellion Studios podcast, and today's guest, we are going to be interviewing Lysia Mogford.
Hi, everybody! Hi! Hi, everybody.
So welcome onto the Babellion Studios
Thank you so
podcast. If you want to introduce yourself and kind of what you've been up to lately.
So, hi, everybody. My name is Lysia Mogford. I am a current junior here at Temple with a theater major, acting concentration. And lately, for the past 2 weeks, I have been working on a feature film, which is so exciting. Woohoo! It's called Ava. And I think we're going to talk more about it later, so I don't want to leave too much. But go ahead.
That's more for the second half, but
Cute.
So kind of more introducing yourself and kind of what all you do. So you're a theater major, and in the industry, you must have a great work ethic to continue obtaining roles. How do you keep that drive up?
I think, especially during COVID, it got really difficult just because, nowhere was doing anything in person. I ended up doing, 6 Zoom shows over the year, which was, awesome and great, but it was very weird because auditions all became film. And as someone who is, very well acquainted with live theater, film was, a whole new realm, and, doing self-tapes and having to watch myself perform over and over and over again was a little wild. So I know what my film actor friends feel like now. I miss live theater a lot, but Temple's hoping to do a lot more in person next year, so that's exciting.
So I guess what kind of differences are there did you find in theater and film? Yeah,
so when I do stuff in film, it's all very focused on the details. So it's very facial, very down to the slightest movements can indicate an acting choice. Whereas in live theater, it's much more physical, and I feel bigger than because of that. And with live theater, I can do it and then just leave it because, you know what, I don't have to look at that again, and each performance is then different. But with film, I can do as many takes as I want, all that kind of stuff, so I can make it like that. But it also made me, hyper-focus on the stupidest things. I was like, well, I don't want to blink there.
Yeah.
Why the fuck am I blinking there? What does that indicate? Is she troubled? Who is she?
Yeah. I feel like it's crazy because just the differences between film and theater, there's so many, details that aren't necessarily picked up on.
For sure.
Yeah. Typically, you have done live theater acting. Did you start becoming an actor hoping you would specialize in live theater, or were you hoping to branch out on camera roles eventually?
I always liked exploring the mix of both. I definitely have a preference for live theater. So I got into theater because my parents were into theater. So both my parents were theater majors, and that's why my name is Lysia. They were in Midsummer Night's Dream together, which is a Shakespeare play. My dad played Lysander, and my mom played Hermia, and they put that together, and that's why I am Lysia, which is super fun. So they were both theater majors. They taught theater. They had a few acting companies, where I grew up. So I was just kind of immersed in it in such a young age, just because if they were there, I was there. So there's a running joke in my family that my first show I was 6 months old because I was carried across the stage, which was super fun. But yeah, it was always been kind of a part of my life, and I think they realized that I took an interest in it, and they wanted to control my ADHD little brain, and they were just you know what, go ahead, go have fun, go play pretend. And it's just kind of stuck with me that this is a fun thing for me too. And I always knew that I didn't want to go to school for something that I would feel bored doing for the rest of my life. So no matter how many old people tell me "Oh, that's so fun, you're gonna be a waitress," I'm like, girly, at least I'm gonna have a fun time. So yeah.
I feel like the stigma around media or art students is changing and rapidly, where there's so many more jobs and stuff open to so many different art fields.
Yeah.
Well, I guess what kind of your thoughts on kind of that perspective changing?
Totally. So I think that the arts can absolutely just be the arts, and that's something that you can do, but I think the arts offer things that other academics don't. So social skills, creativity, that kind of stuff that is very applicable then to other jobs. So I'm a waitress now, which is the stereotype, which is fine, but it means I can talk to people, and I can market myself, and I can market the things that I'm selling and stuff like that. So theater is like such an emotional outlet for me, but it also has taught me a lot about like thinking quickly on my feet and all that kind of stuff too.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
What are big differences for you when it comes to live theater? I guess we kind of already answered that a little bit. But like the differences between theater acting and on-camera acting.
Yeah, so it's like mostly the stuff I said back then, but like I think it also is really interesting, like that idea of leaving it there, because at least for the shows that I have been in, they've had rather long runs, so like maybe 4 or 5 days, and I've never had a show that was exactly the same, whereas in film, it's often to like replicate that something that they like. I think, and at least in my opinion, that's my experience. But the idea, it's why I like live theater so much, is that it will never be the same, and no two portrayals will ever be exactly the same, and all the nuances, and you find new things like that. So that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay. So when you like get out of college and you become more, if you become more like, let's say you become more successful acting in like films and stuff, would you take that role like route, or would you still kind of stay focused in theater?
I would definitely go where I feel like even since the beginning of college, my journey in theater has changed a lot. So like I auditioned everywhere other than Temple as a musical theater major, and my life has changed so rapidly since then that that's not even something I'm necessarily like primarily interested in, but ultimately if it's where I go, it's where I go. And I've found like an appreciation and a love for film. Like I don't want you to think that I don't like it at all, because it's super fun and it's really interesting, and I needed that experience to kind of like push me in order to like explore that different type of thing. But yeah, so like my ultimate goal is comedy. Because I love that, and like SNL, which is live, I think that's pretty fun, but there's the live and film kind of like application there, so I kind of want to find something where I can explore both.
Is that like your dream job?
Yes.
To have?
Yes, I would like to be on SNL. I think I would just like to be Kate McKinnon. I think ultimately that's what this is.
Honestly, I feel like you would be so perfect for that too, because I feel like you have like the personality for it and like the outgoingness.
Thank you.
To, like,
That's
keep
very
that going.
kind.
Who is like your dream actor or actress to work with in either theater or in film?
This is a hard one.
I
So because I'm in love with him, Adam Driver. I would work on anything with Adam Driver. I love you, Adam Driver. But
love him so much.
if it's a matter of like admiration for somebody, I could see myself working really well with like Kristen Wiig. I love Kristen Wiig. I think she's hysterical. Or like, what's her name? Beanie Feldstein. I love Beanie Feldstein.
Wait, who's that?
She was in Booksmart, and she's in a TV show that I really like called What We Do in the Shadows.
I've never heard of the Shadow movie, but I've heard of Booksmart, and I need to get better at like remembering actresses
She's
and actors.
incredible. I love her so much. I think she's so talented. But yeah,
Oh, that's so cool.
those are some of my friends. Driver, I love you.
If you want to come on this show and be interviewed by Lysia Mogford, and here's your opportunity. Kind of transitioning into Ava then.
Perfect.
Your most recent role was in a short movie or short film entitled Ava, which has not been released yet. Could you briefly sum up what that's actually entails?
Yeah, totally. So it's actually going to be a feature film, which is super exciting. It's going to be about 2 hours long. The process for filming it took about 2 weeks. And it was, so I'm going to give you like an intro to like the filmmaker and all that fun stuff. So I worked on this with Marty McGowan. He's super fun. He's also from like the Reading area, and we met doing promo shots for a production of The Crucible I was in, and I was 16 years old, and he kept going, "Give me witchy whore, give me witchy whore," and then he didn't realize I was 16 years old. But now we're besties. It's so fun. And he reached out at the beginning of COVID. He was like, "I want to like do something productive during the pandemic, because I feel like me, a lot of artists were feeling so stunted because you really couldn't do a whole lot." So he sent me like this little mock-up script. He goes, "I know we haven't talked in a while. Can you look this over and see if it's something you're interested in?" So I did, and I took my time, and I read over it. And I mean, at first I was wary of it just because I was like, I don't know how successful anything will be over COVID when like nobody can really meet in person, but I was like, oh, okay, if it becomes something, I would love to be a part of it. And it did become something. It became a 2-hour movie, which is so exciting. And I got to work on it with one of my best friends from home, Miss Olivia Gardella. She thought that I had posed this as a joke. She did not think that this was a real movie. She thought that I was pulling a big prank on her. So what happened was, I would like to work on this with you because you are my best friend. And I was just being genuinely nice, but that's how she read it. And then she was like, you know what? Mm-hmm. I sent her the script and she was like so ready for page 25 to just say like, get fucked, bitch. Like, but it didn't. And we ended up doing that together, which is so fun. Mm-hmm. So the story follows a girl named Ava. She's 17, and it follows her relationship with her best friend. She just had like a lifelong best friend ever since they were like 6 years old. It follows their relationship, and then they end up going to a high school party together before like senior year, and Lexi's boyfriend drugs and rapes Ava, but Lexi walks in and thinks that it was done on purpose, or if she was just angry, and she drives off and she gets into a car accident and she kills herself. And that is the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
So then it goes on from there to kind of like see Ava's journey through therapy and like trying to like find a reason throughout the rest of the movie. And then we meet like Maggie, who my friend Olivia plays, and how she then affects that. And it's figuring out her sexuality. It's figuring out like how she's gonna make school work with all these feelings. And it's really like a really beautiful story. And it sounds very sad, but it has such a happy ending. So like, yeah.
I feel like that movie has a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah, it was definitely hard to like kind of get into the mindset of that because it was such intense emotional highs and lows. So it was like a lot of emotion work with the director through like music and through like physicality things. So like some ways that I build emotion is I make playlists for every show or piece I'm in, just so I can listen to that music and I can use things for different scenes just to kind of get me into the headset of that character. And this character has gone through a lot, but I would also say that a lot of her experiences are the typical like coming of age female experience, just because like sexual harassment and sexuality and like just figuring out how all your feelings are in that tiny little body. Like I think that is something that's really important, and I don't think it's often showcased, at least until pretty recently. So I think getting into her brain was kind of easy for me just because I was turning into like my younger self, which was kind of cool. But yeah,
So I guess that's kind of like how you like prepare for, or you prepared for that role, I guess.
I also did a lot of journaling, which sounds crazy, but like I would write from the perspective of that character just because that's how I process things. Like I journal. So writing in that headspace is something that hurts, I think, sometimes, just because it's things that are superfluous to the script and sometimes don't really matter, but it immediately gets you in that body. So that's one of the things that I also did.
Well, that's really like interesting to think about. But I guess like, do you have any like tips to any other like young actors, I guess, who want to go into the field to kind of like to prepare for a certain role?
Totally. So I think first and foremost, there are a lot of like unhealthy schools of thought within theater, because like some people are like, well, I am that character, so that's all I can do. But I think that is very dangerous for your mental health. I think it's impossible not to envision yourself as the character, because that's the whole point of it. But you can't make yourself inseparable from that person, because I think, at least from all the actors that I've spoken to who have done that like very seriously, have had serious consequences because they take on others' experiences as their own. So I think finding a healthy way of experiencing the emotions without becoming that human is very important. Other than that, in school, I've learned like a lot of fun things. So there are certain things that I can do physically or with my breathing that help me develop emotions. I did a lot of them. And I thought it was crazy while I was doing it, but Fitzmaurice is something where you use tremors in order to like create emotion. And I didn't do them exactly the way I learned in class, but there were ways that I used it to generate like anger and anxiety, because basically what happens is you put certain pressures on your body parts, and then you begin to tremor, so it affects your breathing, so then it affects your emotions. So it's tricking your body into feeling the feelings that you're feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so like cool to think about, like how you can do certain things to your body to like change your emotion and like trick your thoughts. So since you said like live theater is different from film, so is preparing for theater any different to preparing to film, or is there any like similarities or differences in preparing for either or?
Yeah, so I think with theater, that adrenaline rush is already there because there are 100 people coming to see you or more. So I think that often helps me feel those feelings automatically because everything is heightened because I'm nervous as fuck. So like I always find it much easier to generate emotions quicker in theater than I can in film because film I'm in a room with like 3 other people who I have to become very comfortable with because I will be crying in front of them. So I think that trying to do it in film, you allow yourself to have that time to get there, whereas in theater it's like a split second decision. Yeah.
So how do you kind of get comfortable on a film set? Because like with that I can't speak.
It's all good. Don't worry. It's the Dr. Pepper.
Intimacy. Yeah, that intimacy. There you go.
Yeah.
Of like a smaller people, or how do you get like comfortable with the idea of showing strong emotions towards them?
It's really hard, especially like so. Me and Marty, I would say we're friends. I love Marty. Sometimes he jokes that he's not my friend, but he's my friend. I think I had to talk to him as a human before I could talk to him as Ava. So we talked all of COVID. So we had a year to like hang out and like understand each other. We like met at Panera a few times when COVID was really bad. So I did that, and it's becoming comfortable in the space that you're filming in too, because we filmed in his house, but I bet if we were on a film set, I automatically probably would have been a little bit more uncomfortable because a house is like an intimate space where you know that there's like kind of like warm energy that feels nice. But like if you are on a film set, I can imagine it's much harder. But it was getting, I also would say that I am a pretty like comfortable with my emotions. Like I'm okay with talking about them and stuff like that, but as soon as it's not my feelings, it becomes 10 times harder because like I feel wrong being like, you know what, this is her issues and I'm still gonna talk about them. But it was very easy once I did it with friends and people that I felt very comfortable with in a space I was comfortable with.
Okay, it was kind of interesting that you brought up like the big film crew and having like that many people on like a set, like a big like a Hollywood movie or whatever, because I was just about to ask, like, do you think you would have like a harder time getting more comfortable with that a lot more people in one area and it's kind of not comfortable like a house is?
Yeah, so what I would do is I would bring my headphones to set and he would give me like 2 minutes in a room to just listen to my music and do those physical things, and then he would come on so then we could film. So I was given time to get into that space, whereas I think in a film set where everybody's watching you, it's much harder to be like, I gotta scream. Like, maybe that would work in the same way that theater does, though, too, with that adrenaline rush, but I'm not entirely sure just because I haven't had that experience yet. But
okay.
Yeah. I just thought it was much more comfortable doing it where he would just give me my time to feel my feelings and then he would come and allow me to feel them more publicly too. So it was just him and the boom mic operator, Mr. Austin King. Saw me cry way too many times. On and off set. No, I'm just kidding.
I would too, to be honest. Just cried 24/7 on set.
It's like, what's wrong with you? Like, you wouldn't know. But I would like make everybody leave the room. I'd be like, you guys gotta go, you guys gotta go. And then there's that coming down. This is another like thing that I want to talk about with other actors too. There's that point of coming down from those very intensely emotional pieces where you have to allow yourself that time where you're just gonna go about your whole day feeling like garbage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like in one of the scenes, it's a shower scene post-sexual assault. So I had to replicate my version of like a panic attack in the shower. So he gave me the 2 minutes before to prepare. I was listening to music, he allowed me the time to act, and then he gave me like 3 minutes to just kind of like cool down because that's that separation of you from the character too. And I think that's really important because I know a lot of unhealthy teachers like teach you that is a good thing that you're able to create those motions and then you can use them for other things, but you have to make your peace with them before you make them into something else. So
It's really interesting.
Thank you.
I guess that's actually a good segue to the next question. We talked to Claudia about directors often wanting to pull from their own experiences to help them act. But as young actors, that can be difficult if they haven't healed from them. When it comes to this film, you're playing a character with a lot of trauma. How do you prepare yourself for that role?
It's hard. It's really hard because all those feelings, while they're not necessarily your exact same experience, you have experienced those same feelings. So I focused on so there's another like school of thought within theater that you have to create objectives. So it's to and then a verb. So I, throughout the piece, focused on to deflect, just because I feel like with especially younger characters, they don't want to feel the feelings that they're feeling all the time, let alone feelings of trauma. So I think it's much easier to play, I don't want to feel this, I don't want to feel this, I don't want to feel this, than actually like going through the motions of finding exactly where I had these exact same experiences or experiences similar enough, and then hurt myself because of that. Everybody should see a therapist. I'm not playing with y'all. You should go see a therapist.
I support that 100%, and I back that up.
Thank you, King. But I think that it's impossible not to pull from your own experiences when you're an actor. But like Claudia said, there's very healthy ways of doing that. I like to think when I prepare for roles, I'm not looking for exact same experiences. I think that's really unhealthy to do to myself because I'm not Ava. Ava's not me, and nothing will ever be exactly the same. But I can find times when I have felt like dejected or violated or angry and use that then to propel that. And it was also taking my brain into a much younger mindset because I was playing younger than myself. So at 17, I didn't want to feel shit. I just wanted to go to like get frozen yogurt. Like that's all I wanted to do. But like I think all of like these emotional complexities are heightened when you're a kid too, because you have no way of processing those emotions. As a 20-year-old, I can look back and say, you know what, him not asking me to prom, not a big deal. For me back then, I was a mess. Like I was losing my goddamn mind. Like I think that's what made it so easy because everything had such high stakes. And while her traumas were like these very like elevated things, even the little things like I don't want to talk to my dad, like that's still a very heightened emotion. So it's yes and no, I would say. Pulling from your own experience is healthy, but like finding that like beautiful medium between this is me bearing my soul and this is her bearing her soul.
So we were talking about pulling from experiences, and I wanted to ask you, would you ever consider or have you ever kind of before, like preparing for a role, kind of immerse yourself with that and or like interview people for that role, if that makes sense? That have like experienced the same as that character.
I've done heavy research. I haven't had like interviews with anybody necessarily, but for one of the pieces I had to do in my acting 2 class, I had to portray a woman who had like PTSD symptoms that affected her speech patterns. So I like went onto YouTube and I was like, how does PTSD affect speech? Is a stutter something that's appropriate? How does a stutter sound? What are the different types of stutters? Like that kind of thing. So I think especially portraying characters that have all these feelings, it's very important to do your research, especially if those experiences are not yours. Because if you are to play something that is not yours, not only is it necessarily presentation, it can also read as very performative then, especially with mental health issues, stuff like that, sexuality, which I think is kind of a big problem in Hollywood right now. They have a lot of people playing characters that they are not appropriate to play. It's a very big problem in Hollywood right now.
Sorry, a little sidetrack. What's like one character, for an example, that wasn't like fit to play?
Emma Stone in Aloha. Girlie would know you're not Asian.
I've never seen that movie, but from the sounds of it, it doesn't.
I don't like Emma Stone. Don't tell Emma Stone.
Why don't you like Emma Stone?
I don't know. I just don't like her. Don't tell her I said
Don't worry.
With your personal experience with Emma Stone, don't tell her.
All right. So I just won't text her later tonight then.
Don't. I think like representation is key, and I think one of like the trickiest parts right now is a lot of the stories that are being represented are that of white straight people. So like it gives very little opportunity to those who don't fall in that binary. So finding stories to represent those is rare. So then when we like misinterpret it from there, it's like you're not giving anybody a chance that is not at the forefront of issues. So yeah, that's my little. I'm gonna step off the soapbox. But yes, what were we talking about? I just got in a Emma Stone tangent. I blacked out.
It's alright. We were talking about like, would you ever consider like, or have you ever done steps of like interviewing people too, from people's experience, your experience the same as the characters? Or like not necessarily interview, but like research on that topic to better understand the character you're playing.
Totally. So I like acting as a collaborative thing. So in class, I am the one that asks too many questions, and I ask people if they have experienced things that my characters have experienced. So that for that same role with the stutter, one of my classmates grew up with the stutter. So he was like giving me like the certain letters that either get mixed up or become the most tripped up on, which I think is like crazy important to know, because without him saying, hey, I feel like this could be a little bit better, like I would be doing somebody a disservice by portraying that person like that. So that's my little research 2 cents. I like ask all my friends, I do a YouTube deep dive and then pull from my own experiences.
It's really interesting. I like that concept because I never, like, I've been interested in editing and like the film side since I was very young, but I haven't learned that skill until last semester or the most previous semester at Temple. But the reason why I brought that up is because Josh, we were taking screenwriting together, and Josh was creating a script, like the final script for that class, and he was doing it on like divorced parents and stuff, and he asked me questions about, because my parents are divorced, so he asked me questions about like having your parents divorced and stuff, and I never like put 2 and 2 together that to create like a better film to actually go out and research the characters that I'm kind of writing about and or like having my characters play. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And as a young actor, you're kind of just told, oh, well, act sad. We don't care about your experiences. Well, you're sad in this scene. You just have to be sad. But I think that's one thing that I learned in college too, that I was like, well, what's the motivation behind that? Why do I feel this way? And what factors determine that, even if they're not explicitly listed? So in the show, the movie, Ava's mom ends up leaving when she's young too, which is an experience I have. My parents are divorced. I don't see my dad like that. So I think finding stuff like that, but if I had not had that experience, where would that hurt come from? And how would I be able to like articulate that? I may have lost other people, but that doesn't mean that I have necessarily had that same parental experience too. So I think that's awesome that he asked you for that too. So
yeah, and then we were being taught that throughout that class as well, and then it's just amazing amazing skill to have to kind of research and get or in depth and or pull from experiences that you previously had.
Yeah.
What was like one highlight or like one experience that you had while filming Ava that kind of stood out to you that was like, wow, I haven't really like experienced this before?
Yeah, so I think with that character, it was very easy to experience the lows, but there is one where it's like a flashback scene with Lexi and finding the joy in that. I think regardless of who you play, what character you play, you have to be rooting for them. Even if they aren't doing what's necessarily right or something that you agree with, there's something about them that you have to humanize. And I think it's very easy to just be like, oh, I'm sad the whole time, so I just have to be sad. But there's never just like that one side to a character, and it's finding that gray scale to play with in the middle. So I think finding those moments of hope and joy for her was something really beautiful that like sometimes, at least up until early college, late high school, I found it really hard to find, because it's, oh, look at all the shit that she's been through. How can she find anything? Am I allowed to swear? I've sworn so much. I'm so sorry. It's finding that like that little bit of light. So I found a lot of like those little glimmers of hope for Ava, which was sweet because I feel like in some ways this was a very cathartic experience. It's my first big thing post-COVID, which was like so exciting. And feeling those feelings of hopelessness throughout COVID, like I'm gonna like, this shows how heavily affected theater is by like a pandemic and not being able to see people, and even when you are starting to be able to see people, like the restrictions still put on that. But yeah, so I think like feeling all those little breaths of joy within the piece was very like symbolic and kind of therapeutic for me. But it was also like one of the most rewarding things too, because I wanted to help the character I was playing. I didn't feel bad for her anymore. I knew she could like be okay. You know what I mean?
Have you done any films in the past, and if so, how does that compare to?
Don't talk about my other films.
Compared to Ava, if you want to talk about
yeah,
it, but
no
you don't
worries.
have to.
I did a color study with Sophia, and it was so fun. I like painted my face blue. I was in the dorm with you guys.
That was so much fun.
It was so much fun, but like that is like my first real like film experience. I've done a few short films like in high school, stuff like that. I did something called The Oedipus, and it was like a spoof of The Office, but it was Oedipus.
Wait, I think I've heard about that.
I wrote it.
Oh, you
I
wrote
was
it?
I was an autist.
You're an
Well,
artist?
somebody probably wrote it before
Yeah.
I did. I just thought it was funny.
Wait, did you tell me about that? I feel like that sounds familiar.
I probably have, because I was probably like, oh my god, they're all film majors. I need to say
Yeah.
I did something. I did a spoof of The Office. Like, most of my experience is all live theater or improv based. I used to take acting classes where I did like studies of like self-tapes, which I would argue were sometimes kind of just like little mini films.
Yeah.
You're going to be so proud of me. I used iMovie
my
for
gosh.
my final monologue, and it looks so cool. I did a
That's so
Richard
awesome.
III monologue, and I edited it. Bitches.
Did you put in like sound effects and stuff and animations? And I'll get all that.
You know what?
Like Star Wars.
I put some music in the background, and I took 3 separate takes, and I cut them together.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
And I made it red.
That's such a beautiful. I don't think I am capable of doing that.
Yeah, sorry. I now am a film major as well.
You come in like out of nowhere, and you're like the best editor of all time.
Thank you.
Yep.
I cried while I was doing it. I was like, I don't know how to do this.
It's so funny.
I don't want a cupcake.
No, not funny. What's that? You should-
That's the new title of the film.
Yes,
Not funny, but sad.
Can we make a film called that?
Yeah, Gorge.
Okay. All right.
I'm ready to party.
Okay, but I guess kind of rate it a little bit more serious though. But
Yeah.
how do you prepare for monologues, and what's kind of like the experience?
It's very similar to the way I perform in film, except I have to work all by myself. I don't have Olivia's sad face to look at. Like, I don't really have much to pull from other than myself. So I had a little self-tape wall in my room, which means no pictures, nothing like that. And I would set up a ring light because I'm an influencer.
You're so trendy.
But it was trying to find why that character felt the way they felt in a teenage bedroom, which was a little bit difficult because I'm like, I have a poster of Dolly Parton over there. I don't feel very sad right now. But it got my ADHD to focus so hard on the emotions that like it didn't matter what space I was in. But it was really like more difficult doing scenes over Zoom because a lot of ways that I establish emotion are by making eye contact because it makes me more comfortable. And being able to see how my words are affecting someone in their eyes when I can't even make an eye line with them over Zoom is crazy because I had to look at the camera and I'm like, well, where do I pull from then other than just the intonation of how they're saying things? I need to put my sunglasses.
Yeah, I was like, how are you seeing? Because it's like so bright. I was like, maybe should I take off my cap or glasses?
No, don't worry. It's me and you against the world.
We'll defeat it together.
Yes, period, king. I think I touched on everything. Just not being able to make that eye line and having to look at the camera, which is, I'm sure is something that many other people are used to, but as someone who has been such a tactile human, like, not, like, staring somebody down and watching them be affected by the way I'm saying things is really weird, especially because we focused almost entirely on Shakespeare second semester. And Shakespeare is already heightened text. I have some experience with Shakespeare, but even for someone who does have that experience, it's very difficult because I'm like trying to figure out what the fuck you're saying and what the fuck I'm saying and how I'm supposed to then react because of that. I did scenes from Julius Caesar, Hamlet, and Measure for Measure. I ended up doing Measure for Measure as my final scene, which was super fun. It's a comedy. It's something I was very comfortable with. But when it came down to filming, I was like, I want to help you. I want to help myself. But it actually turned out very nicely. It ended up on the senior showcase, which was, well, not senior showcase, acting concentration showcase, which was awesome.
Oh, that's so cool.
But that is a huge ass lantern fly. I will kill you, little man. Okay, he's gone.
Fuck lantern flies. Oh, Trey got it.
My savior. Yeah. What were you saying?
I forget. But I had like a couple more questions,
Please, I'm ready for him.
Kind of more focusing on the theater aspect. What was, out of all the theater you've done so far, what was your favorite role that you played?
So I got to play Tracy my senior year of high school from Hairspray. It was so fun. And like, this is so sad. As a fat kid, like being able to play a fat character who was a lead was so cool. I was like, oh my God, like if I would have had this human, I mean, she's not a perfect character, but she was like used. Nobody was really concerned with her body. They were more concerned with the story.
Yeah.
And that was like so cool. And I feel like if little me had that human to be like, oh my God, that's so cool. That's something I could do in the body that I was born in. That would be so awesome. So I got to play that. I got to sing my little heart out. It was so fun. I got to dance, and I was never like a wonderful dancer, but I feel like for that show, I killed it. I killed it.
That's so cool.
You saw me ponying it across the stage, and you said, I like that bitch. As far as other characters I've played, I got to play Barb in a show called Crumble, which was super fun. It's called Crumble, Lay Me Down, Justin Timberlake, and I played a crazy cat lady who gets drunk frequently. It was so fun, and I loved that character because that was when I kind of realized that musical theater was not what I was put on this earth to do, which I had like a lot of doubts about because I was like, if I've done this my entire life, why don't I do it now? You know what I mean? Like, so I ended up doing that, and I was like, I can be funny and I can be sad and I can feel all these feelings, but I can find the light in it, which was so nice. And I did it with my current roommate, Miss Giannina Felina. That's not her name. It's Giannina Felino, but I love her.
No, we're just going to call her that now.
Yeah, she's Giannina Felina. And she played my sister, and we ended up liking each other so much that we have an apartment together now, which is so nice. But I loved that show for all the reasons listed, not to mention it is just like this beautiful story, and it's more about like the poetry of it than the story of it too, which is super nice. And then one more role I got to play, which is where I met Marty. I got to play Abigail in The Crucible, which was so cool. It was my first like straight play experience other than Shakespeare pieces with that heightened text that I could like really sink my teeth into, and it was like a really powerful role. And as someone, like I said previously, a little fat kid, I didn't get to play the leads a whole lot because I wasn't the ideal body type. I wasn't the ideal character. I like to make jokes, and it was very comfortable for me to do that. So I often played like the sidekick. So being seen as someone who could play a lead was like crazy to me. Like I was like, this is so cool. So I think that kind of like shaped me to start viewing myself as the main character and not as like the sidekick, which was so nice.
How in theater and in film as well, like different body tones or different body types is very like prevalent within.
Yeah.
How do you kind of feel about that?
It's such a weird thing because I've never experienced something that I have wanted to do for the rest of my life without a doubt, but that also can disgust me in such a way because I like to think of theater as this like heavily diverse thing, which it is, and it's beautiful for that because it can share those stories, but the stories that people choose to see are often, like I said before, of like white straight people who are skinny and beautiful and have these lives. And if you don't fit that skinny, white, conventionally attractive like body type, then you're a sidekick or you're the villain or you're something like that too, which is, it's a really weird thing because it's the only job you can go into where they're like, we want a white man in his early 40s and that's okay. Like you can just say that. But I feel like I don't like bugs. The way the theater is changing. It is changing for the better, and it's becoming more gender blind, color blind, that kind of things. And I think what theater needs to accomplish, like the heaviest grossing shows, are the shows that have been on forever. And because they show one experience, they need to become more diverse in the stories that they tell. Because without that, you're going to be stuck with the same 4 stories for the rest of your life, and you're going to expect that that's how people just are. And there are a lot of problematic shows that need to be cut because of their portrayals of people of color or people in the LGBTQ community because they play off of stereotypes because they're written by people who are not a part of that group. This fly, I'm going to kill it.
It's so big.
I know, it's humongous. What
Freaking
are they
horse
feeding you? He's on that organic shit. But yeah, I think that's one of the things about theater that I am so like heavily confused by, especially because, I mean, I had it lucky. I'm a white woman. A lot of my experiences are showcased. I can't imagine what it was like for other people growing up wanting to do theater and wanting that artistic expression without having anybody that showed who they were, unless it was like a stereotype of who they were, which is so false and so gross and unnecessary. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So in film, I've seen like actors like Leonardo DiCaprio or some other like Ben Affleck who drastically change their bodies to fit a certain role.
Yeah.
Does that happen in theater a lot, or is it kind of less?
I've seen it happen in theater. I think it's much more common in film. I know that at least for a few shows that I have done, I have been asked to dye my hair different colors. I have been asked to just like cut my hair, that kind of stuff. I don't think it's ever been as drastic as my body type. Like, especially like because of all the implications that would have, especially as like an actress too. I think it's very admirable that people can do that. I think it is important to portray those kinds of things. I remember, what is the one with Leonardo DiCaprio where he does that? I'm trying to think of what the movie's called. I can't remember. But I think it was, go ahead.
I was trying to think of it. I was thinking of like that
called.
bear movie that he was in.
Yes,
Revenant.
Revenant.
Revenant. Yeah, you got it.
He's a bear. I think it was very important for him to do that because that's who that character is, and it doesn't have anything to do. It's where my complexities come is when it starts becoming a matter of people playing outside of the race that they are, because that. This fly and me are gonna have a physical altercation.
It's out to get you.
It's out to get me. I think that's where the real problems lie. Personally, I don't really see an issue with it for the Revenant because I don't feel like he was portraying somebody with like an eating disorder or something like that. And even so, like I think those stories are very important to tell and therefore should be portrayed correctly. Yeah.
I guess when you're asked to like dye your hair or like change anything about your body, how do you feel about that? Do you like accept it and get your hair cut, or do you kind of just say I'm not really comfortable with doing that?
It depends on the show I was doing. So the one that I had to do was I had to dye my hair red because I was playing Annie, which I felt fine about doing. That red did not come out for like 3 years, which is like crazy. But I think because they needed me to do it, then I would do it. But if it was something stupid, like we need you to lose 10 pounds to play this role, why would I do that? I don't really think that's going to affect my body that much.
Yeah.
Or gaining weight and that kind of stuff. I think when done in a healthy way, like I know many of those actors talked about their experiences doing that, I think that's great. But I feel like at the level that I am at right now, if I'm asked to lose weight for something like that, I don't know how willing I would be to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we still have a couple more questions about Ava.
beautiful.
What was your overall experience on the film set? I know that we kind of already touched on that a little bit, but like I guess overall experience on the film set.
So fun. And you would think with like a show that was like so sad, like I wouldn't have such a good time. But we were cracking jokes the whole time. Which was so nice because I feel like I needed that little bit of lift because that's what really helped me get out of those headspaces. It was realizing that I'm a real life human person and I have real life human person emotions, and most of them are me making stupid your mom jokes. Like, and I think that was really nice for me to have, and it was with Olivia, who I've known. I'm going to give you a story about Olivia.
Yes.
Me and Olivia have known each other since 2017, late 2016, and we became friends because I didn't drive a car. And I was like, I know this is really annoying. We were in a show, we were in Chicago together, it was super fun. I was like, can you drive me to the Target so my mom can pick me up from the Target and take me home? Yeah. She was like, okay. And then we became friends. Oh my gosh. I didn't pay her anything for driving me to the Target. I'm so sorry, Olivia.
I feel like that's how most great friendship starts, because I had a similar friendship but reverse. I was the one driving it.
Like, can you drive me to the Target so my mom can pick me up? And then we would, and that was how we became friends, and so we have been friends ever since. So doing something like this with someone I'm so comfortable with and someone who I don't get to spend a lot of time with because we didn't end up going to the same school, you bitch. But it was so nice because it was also like such an opportunity for us to like catch up and not have to just like FaceTime each other every day because it's become like every other day now, which is so crazy. But somebody who was easy to exist with. But they kept getting mad at me because I kept making like 2012 jokes, so I would just like dab really hard and then like just hope everybody would laugh.
That's so funny.
And just like making like TikTok references just to like kind of lighten whatever mood we had created because I was fighting, I was screaming, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that's so entertaining.
Yeah, it was so fun, and it was like it was something I was nervous about because I was like, this is gonna be heavy.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Please get me out here.
It was so much easier to just be like, you know what? We can joke about this. This is fine.
Oh, that's so cool. Was it, I guess, okay, never mind. We're going to skip that question because we already answered it.
It's too edgy. It's too edgy for the podcast.
It's too edgy. No. Let's move on. But okay. The stereotype for a theater is that there's more camaraderie behind the scenes with the actors and crew. Do you see this yourself? And then how does film sets compare?
Yes. I always like to talk about the theater kid stereotype because I think it's hysterical. Like, there's... Everybody talks about how annoying band kids are. Have you met theater kids?
Oh my gosh, I've dated one.
We're annoying as fuck. We're loud. We talk about our feelings way too much. We overshare. We have a really... I'm so sorry. We overshare. But I think that there is like a bond with all the kids I did theater with in high school that I didn't have in the classroom because we all had ADHD.
Yeah.
Most of us had divorced parents. Something's got to go wrong that you decide to do theater. Yeah. I think that was really nice. And I think it's the same on a film set. I have the same relationships here that I've had like in high school with all the people who I do the arts with, because I think that we communicate in a way that is so like emotionally raw in a way that sometimes it can make other people uncomfortable because I feel like we're told to replicate all these feelings and then we're like, oh, well then we can just talk about them because we're not afraid of them.
Yeah.
So I think that was something that was really important. Not to mention, we're all really obnoxious and we like to be the center of attention. I don't know if you've realized.
I didn't realize.
So I think I always have a lot of fun with people like that just because it's very easy to make jokes with those people. It's very easy to talk to them. So
I feel that's one thing that I love about like this industry or like this profession is that I feel like literally everyone in this field is like, I guess there's like a small percentage, but like very comfortable to talk to.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's just like you can just walk up to anyone and just start a conversation, just like you guys have been friends for 5 years in reality. You just met. It's so crazy.
Exactly. Like, have you ever tried to hold a conversation with a biology major?
Nope.
Me neither. Like, they're just like, oh, I like bugs. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna go back to the theater building. You have a nice day. Like,
Good conversation. I'm never gonna see you again.
I just, no hate to biology majors. Y'all are cool or whatever. I'm happy y'all guys like frogs or whatever.
I said this on the podcast of the League of Dwaynes that we did.
Oh, God.
Thank you. Thank God that you converted Janet from a bio major to a theater major. I remember talking about that. And I thought it was so
biology
funny.
major. I'm so sorry, Janet. I'm so sorry, Janet.
No, but like she's a theater major and she only did biology for like
Oh my God.
a semester and she was like, fuck this. Like, I don't want to be this anymore.
And Janet's like, I think I want to be a theater major. I was like, do it, bitch. Come on, girly.
All right.
Come join the dark side.
Come on. It's more fun over here.
Come on, girly.
But I guess we can kind of wrap this podcast up. So, podcast.
We can wrap this podcast up.
We can wrap this podcast up. Are we ending it here?
Yeah, we can. We Okay, we need to end it. You know what?
Right.
It's become less of a can we and it's a should we.
Yeah. All right. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And see you guys later. Oh, and we're on our roof deck.
Roof deck! Woo!